Hi, this is Pat Iyer with Legal Nurse Podcast, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Janelle Anderson, who is a confidence coach. She works with women business owners and leaders to help them with their greatness and to know their immense value so that they can make contributions to the people they serve. I thought she would be a great guest to have on Legal Nurse Podcast because of the contributions that we all make when we're working with attorneys. Tell me, Janelle, first of all, welcome to the show, and I'm glad
Thank
that
you.
you can be here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about how you got interested in the concept of confidence. What's behind that in your life?
Well, I was not a very confident person for most of my life and became more confident as I did a lot of personal development work and began to really get to know myself. And I also have done a lot of research around it. And I discovered that it's a very common problem or issue, I guess, that women have in feeling confident in who they are and what they do, and it holds them back. So as I discovered this about myself, I realized how much I had held myself back in my life. And I wanted to share that with women because uh, I feel like that is probably underneath everything else. It's that lack of confidence that keeps women from really going for it. I look at it like a horse race. And the horses are lined up and ready to go out of the gate, and they've got everything they need to run the race. They've got the training, they've got the equipment, they've got the strength and all of that. But there's something blocking them from running that race fully, and that's that gate. And until that gate opens, they aren't going to run with everything they have in them. And so that there's things often that are blocking women from going for it and just running the race that they have in front of them. And that's what I like to get to, is figure out how to remove that block, because I had a lot of those. So um, once I removed them, I just started going for it. And I found that I felt really great about who I was, who I am, and found myself speaking up with ease. Whereas before I would just be really quiet. I wouldn't speak up because I felt like nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. And I wasn't sharing my message. I wasn't sharing who I am. And I wasn't fulfilling my purpose in the world. And it's so much better when you are. There's so much freedom and power and fulfillment. So, uh, that kind of in a nutshell, like why I got interested in the
Mm-hmm.
confidence.
What I hear most often from legal nurse consultants who are starting their businesses is that it's a big leap to go from being a clinical nurse to the business world. And the chicken and egg dilemma is that in order to get confidence, you have to have experience. And if you don't get experience, you can't develop confidence. And some attorneys don't want to hire legal nurse consultants until they have experience. But if nobody hires them, they don't get experience. It's this wheel that goes round and round, and it stops many people who are concerned about, is this really something that I can do? Am I good enough? Will attorneys find value in working with me? That confidence issue strikes beginning people. And I think it also strikes people who are starting on new areas of their life. For example, some legal nurse consultants want to testify as expert witnesses. And there are few things that are more terrifying to a nurse than to be in a courtroom and knowing that the attorneys on the other side, his or her sole objective is to make you look bad so that the jury won't accept your conclusions. Our trials are virtual now, as opposed to being in the courtroom or under constrained conditions. What would you say would be some of the ways that you could address what I'm describing in terms of the confidence, particularly as it relates to doing something new?
That's such a great question. And the example you just gave, not only for legal nurses in that situation, but really women in all kinds of situations in corporate America or running their business, this idea of expressing who they are and what they have to say in front of an audience. And especially with that thought of, am I good enough? Am I qualified? Am I going to be accepted? And like you said earlier, this whole egg and chicken, what comes first? And it's almost like a catch 22. So I would say there's two things. There's two approaches I take to this whole confidence issue is yes, a lot of times you build confidence by doing something. When I was learning how to play the piano, I didn't have confidence in it, or leading worship in church was something I did. And the first time I did it I felt like my hands were completely numb. I couldn't feel the keys. I was so nervous. And afterwards I felt like, oh, I'm not qualified. I can't do this. It was the first time I had ever done it. And as I did it more and more, I gained confidence. So you do get confidence from taking action and practicing and doing whatever it is that you're doing. The better you get at it, the more confident you will be. But then there's this other side of confidence where I like to focus, and that's the inner confidence in who you are, because even if you're trying something brand new for the first time, if you have that inner confidence that, yes, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I believe in me and I believe that I can achieve this or I can learn and I do have something important to share. And that gives you enough confidence to at least take the small step to try it. So the two work together. There's this whole mindset around confidence that we have to dig into and understanding the things like, I feel like a fraud. I feel like I'm not qualified. Digging into that, like, where is that thought coming from? Is it even really true? And how can you begin to develop a confidence in who you are and just embracing the value of yourself as a person and what you bring to the table gives you confidence to even try something new, if that makes sense. So I like to address both at the same time because you can develop a strong mindset and deal with the thoughts that hold you back. I call them imposter stories. But if you also are not taking action and taking that small step, you'll you won't see results. And if you're trying to take action without dealing with the mindset, you'll find yourself stuck somewhere because you are being blocked by the thoughts and the imposter stories.
I've heard the expression imposter syndrome. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. It was first coined actually by a couple of doctors who did some research with 150 women who were already successful, already high achieving, but they felt like they had this lack of confidence. So in the study, they found some typical thoughts or beliefs that these women shared that came up a lot, and they coined the phrase imposter syndrome because they were thoughts and feelings like, I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, I'm going to be found out. Even Maya Angelou was quoted after her 11th book, saying, I've written 11 books and every time I feel like they're going to find me out now and I'm a fraud. So it's this feeling like I'm not qualified. I'm a fraud. They're going to find out, sort of like an underlying fear all the time that you're going to be found out. That's the imposter syndrome. And it can really hold you back because you're afraid of being found out. So that's those imposter stories of, I'm not qualified, I'm not good enough, even with degrees and an alphabet soup after your name, women can still feel this feeling like, I'm going to be found. I mean, look at Maya Angelou. She was super successful. I mean, I think she wrote 26 books or something and just did all kind. I looked her up the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, she accomplished so much in her life. And for her to still feel that way, that it's a common feeling that women have more than men. That's what the research shows. Men can experience it too, but it seems like it happens more often for women.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like to address those stories. What are the stories you're telling yourself about not being qualified, or where did that come from? And let's look at the truth of that. And so often, if you look at the successes you've already had, the things you've already achieved, and begin to speak about them, I find that for women to talk about their own achievements is very difficult. and we haven't taken the time to look at them. We achieve something and then we breeze right past it and we think it's really nothing, but it is something. And so that's the truth. The truth is you are qualified. So let's look at that. And when the imposter story shows up, now you have this evidence to prove it wrong in your own mind so that you can begin to believe in yourself. Believing in yourself is the most important part of this building of confidence and getting rid of the imposter syndrome. If you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? So it's got to start with you.
And I know that there are some men listening to this podcast. We have a growing percentage of male nurses. The majority, however, remain females. And I also know, and this is a broad question, I know that our listeners are represented in 80 different countries. So there's all kinds of cultural backgrounds. But with that in mind, why is this more a female issue than a male issue?
So there's really several reasons the research has shown. Part of it is just being female and being more of a relational type of, we're more concerned with relationship. What do people think of me? Wanting to nurture other people and build other people up. And so that we tend to put ourselves last. It's just sort of a female thing. And then part of it is the culture and the gender bias that we've encountered in all through history, really. And that is a lot of sometimes overt messages we hear, people actually saying things like, in the workplace, I've heard of women's, being shut down in meetings by men and cut off when they're trying to share. But then it's also subliminal oftentimes. It's just these, messages that we kind of pick up from the culture that women aren't as important, or what we have to share maybe is not as important. And if we believe that, we end up holding ourselves back. And so that's what the research has shown often for women. It's a combination. Also, childhood experiences or messages that we picked up as children. And this can be for men as well, being told things by parents or teachers or other people in authority over us, coaches. I know for me, I picked up some things from teachers and even from my family life that weren't necessarily, like, nobody was telling me that I didn't have an important voice or that I shouldn't share my voice, but I picked it up subliminally and I believed it just because I was in a big family and it was hard to be heard around the dinner table. And so inside, I just came to this conclusion that, well, I guess nobody wants to hear what I have to say because nobody's listening to me. And I believed that was true, even though it really wasn't true. So sometimes we pick up things as children just from events that happened or, something somebody said, and we take it in internally and believe it's true when it really is not. And so digging down to uncover those is hugely beneficial. And I found that often people don't know how to quite get to those stories, and they haven't taken the time to really dig down and, kind of excavate those. But when you do, it can be very enlightening and it can really help you to move past that and kind of like the gate, remove that gate out of your way so that you can run your race with everything in you full on. When people are confident, they're going for it and they are achieving goals and they're challenging themselves to go higher and do more. They're like that horse, just running the race with everything that he has or she has in him or her. So it's removing those blocks that are keeping you kind of in the background or holding you back. I used to say that, I always say that I used to kind of hide behind the curtain in my life, and not coming out on center stage of my own life. I wasn't appearing fully as me in my life. I was hiding. I was diminishing myself and shrinking back out of fear that what others might think of me, or that belief that no one wanted to hear what I had to say. But when I got to the point where I began to value myself for me and really believe that, hey, I am important just like anyone else in the world, and what I think is important, it does matter, then other people started to see the value in me. And so that's why I feel like, for women, it's really dealing with those inner stories, as well as what are the things you've picked up, from the culture, from your childhood, from things that have happened that have become a block for you in this area.
And is this a process that requires therapy? Is this something a person can do by herself?
Oh, I think that you can do it yourself. I actually have developed a formula from my
Mhm.
own process. There are times where you might require therapy if it's something traumatic or something that you have not processed through, and there's a lot of emotion behind it, or there's been some abuse or something like that. I would definitely go to a therapist to work through that. But if it's just something like, what I was describing from my childhood, I mean, that doesn't require therapy. It just requires me to be aware of it and to challenge it within myself. Like, how true was that really, that nobody wanted to hear what I had to say? Or was it just that I was in a big family with a lot of kids? And, so I concluded that, but we conclude things that aren't true.
Mhm.
So the process I've developed is, it works. It worked for me and it's working for my clients. And it does take some time. It's not like 1, 2, 3, I'm done, like it is a process, and it can take a while depending on the person, but you can actually create your own confidence gene, I call it. There's often this feeling of some people were born confident, they have a confidence gene, and some people are not. And of course, some personality types do tend to naturally be more self-assured and more confident just by nature. But I do believe you can create confidence within yourself through this process,
Can you
which
give us an overview of the process?
sure. So first is just being aware of what confidence is and is not, like we've been talking, why it's so important to be confident, and how it can hold you back if you're not, because confidence is directly linked to success for sure. The more confident you are, the more you'll achieve, as I said a few minutes ago. So that's the first part, is like even being aware, where am I confident in my life and where am I not confident? Because most of us have areas where we are and areas where we are not. And then the second part, once you're aware of it, is to start digging into those stories. I call them confidence zappers. What is it in your life that tends to like zap your confidence? And being aware of that and starting to notice in certain situations, or is there certain things that happen, or if somebody says something, what's the trigger for you? What are the stories you've believed all your life about yourself? And there's usually one core sort of inner critic type of message, like Maya Angelou had, or what I've had about you. For me, it was nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. So what is that? And then once you are aware of it, then you can begin to challenge the truth of it and change that story. So the third part would be changing those stories that you've developed and find the truth that is really, usually it's the opposite. So for me, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. It was really the opposite, was that that's part of my purpose, is to be a speaker and a teacher. And it's part of my gifting and my strength. And so, yes, people do want to hear what I have to say. And so I began to like dig for the evidence of that, and what people have, the feedback I've gotten from people when I do share was, what were they saying? It was positive. It was like, wow, that was really inspiring. That really helped me. That to me was my evidence. I had to like make a list even of that so that I could counteract the negative. And changing the story is like that. So you're changing the thought patterns you've developed in your life. And I found that it's much more powerful if you find the new story that's based on truth. And if you can find the evidence of that truth, you'll believe it, and it will create that new story. But if you're just trying to make up a story and you don't have it, based on anything, it's harder to believe. You'll go back, your brain will go back to your old story, because your brain actually creates these thought patterns, right? And these ruts in our brain. So to change the story, you've got to be really kind of intentional with that. And I would say even write it down. What is your new story and what's it based on? And so then now that you start to create this new positive story, then I love to all through you should be taking action, but begin to take some action steps, some small actions of things that maybe you are not doing because of a lack of confidence. Even a small action can boost your confidence. So let's say it's getting in a courtroom and needing to bring this testimony. So a small action would be maybe practicing answering questions, which I would assume they do ahead of time, but even practicing that in front of a camera and filming yourself giving this testimony and then watching it, because then you get used to being in front of the camera. You also get used to hearing yourself speak these words, and even role playing with someone to be that lawyer who's going to try to disprove, play some role playing, get used to doing it, because then your body is involved, your mind is involved, and you're doing the action and you've rehearsed it. That builds your confidence so that the first time is not in the courtroom. So those actions, along with, as you're changing the story, start taking action. And then I love this part. This is what I call discovering your gems and pearls. This is more of that self-discovery of who are you really? What are the great things within you that make you unique? What are your strengths? What is your personality type? What are the things you've accomplished in your life? What makes you unique and you? And the more that you can uncover that, because I've seen typically women, especially, will tell me, somebody just told me this yesterday, I don't feel special. I don't think there's anything about me that's special or unique. I'm just kind of average. But I would challenge that and say, no, that's not true. You actually have something within you that makes you unique. We all do. We're all a masterpiece. And it's that combination of our personality, our strengths, our gifts, our experiences, the things we've learned, the things we've overcome. Those are the pearls, because pearls are formed, right, from a little speck of dust. And the oyster secretes the substance to cover that up and makes this beautiful pearl. So what are the things you've had to overcome in your life? What are those obstacles and challenges that you've overcome that have become pearls of wisdom within you that have huge value? So this piece to me is probably the biggest game changer, because if you can really value yourself and see how awesome you are and be able to say, hey, I'm pretty awesome without feeling like you're boastful, but it's just a fact. I'm awesome and you're awesome. And when you can begin to own that and embrace that, you stop comparing yourself to others. That worry about other people's opinions tends to diminish, because you're like, well, that's on them, what they think of me. I know who I am. I know that I'm valuable. And that just creates that inner confidence kind of in a really natural way. I found that as I worked through that, for me, that was a huge one, because I didn't feel like I had any value or worth. And there were a lot of reasons why for me, a lot of stuff that had happened in my past. When I started to realize, like, seeing the value of me as a person, who I am and how I was created and how I was put together is valuable. And I do have a contribution to make just by being me. That started to create a confidence and a boldness in me that I had never experienced before. I found I started speaking up just naturally, confidently in different situations where in the past I would have stayed quiet. And it was more of a settled, peaceful, contented confidence. It's not like, hey, I'm better than everybody else or anything like that. It's just more of I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I like who I am, and I can walk out on center stage of my life and just be me and not try to be someone else. And it's really a freedom, so that part is very, very important. And there are lots of ways to discover, who you are. And then the final piece is to develop that voice and that those places where you can speak up and be visible, be heard, be seen. Find those places. Like I started my own podcast that creates a platform for me to speak and be heard. But it might be different, for different people, but getting used to hearing your voice and what is your message, what are ways you can express who you are to the world or in the different situations that you find yourself. So that's my process.
Yes, it sounds quite comprehensive.
It really is. And like I always say, it's not a quick fix, and it could take some time. It took me actually several years, but I do have a course where we sort of, look at each piece in a overview, and I get people started. I get women started on it. And then I found that they take that and they work on it past the course. When the course is over, they're still developing themselves. So it's really a gift that keeps on giving.
You've got the momentum going.
Yes.
And then in reality, the costs of not addressing this are enormous.
Yes. Huge. Yes. You stay behind that gate. You never run the race. You don't play full out. You don't accomplish what you were put really on this earth. I believe everyone has a purpose. And I remember sitting there in church one day thinking, in my mid-50s, thinking the message was, fulfilling your purpose. And I thought, oh my gosh, 50 some years has gone by so fast. And I haven't, I've been holding myself back. I need to get on this thing now. And the thought of getting to the end of my life and looking back and regretting not fulfilling my purpose was a greater fear, I think, than actually overcoming those things that were holding me back. And I just decided, I have one life to live, and I need to live it. And I really need to find out what is the thing that I should be contributing to the world. Who am I really? And what am I all about? And so it became a quest for me. And like you said, there is a cost to not dealing with these things. And we don't want to get to the end of our days and regret that we could have and we didn't. So I agree with you there.
It makes me think of my father, who died when he was 56, and I was 29 when he died. And it was a blinding realization that life is short.
Right.
He had regrets. He divorced my mother, and he was living with his parents, and they didn't want him to date. And he would say to me, after my parents die, then I'll date and then I'll be happy. And they outlived him.
Wow.
And I thought at the age of 29, I realized that there is no guarantee. You don't have this infinite amount of time that you think you do. You have to live the life as best you can and take the risks that go along with playing full out, as you've been describing, in order to achieve the things that are important to you. But if you stay behind that gate, as you've been describing, you end up with the regrets and the missed opportunities, the money that, in our case, in the legal nurse consulting world, the money that you've spent to build a business, to learn the field, and then you're not confident enough to take the next step to get the clients, that creates a lot of regret and guilt. And if the legal nurse consultant has told all the people around him or her, hey, I'm going to start this business, and then does nothing, that's embarrassing.
Yes. Yes, it is. When I started my business as a coach, I was 61. And I thought, am I too old? Should I be starting something new at this age? This is kind of ridiculous. All those thoughts came to me. And also, am I qualified? Can I do this? All of those thoughts. But that feeling of, I really want to do this. This is something I know I'm good at, because I had done the self-discovery and found out what my strengths were and felt this really strong passion to do this. That was stronger. And it was like taking a leap. It was like, okay, I'm just going to jump and do this. And I remember thinking, you know what? I know I can learn what I need to learn. So again, it was that belief in myself. I had never done this before, but I can learn it. I know I can learn it. I'm a good learner. I have skills. I mean, look at what I've accomplished already. I just am going to do it. And that was kind of a defining moment for me. And it was hard. I mean, even after I made that decision, I had wrestled with a lot of the confidence around being a coach and could I build the business? Could I go out and find my clients? Could I do the marketing part of it? And I just kept coming back to whatever it is I need to learn, I will learn it, or I will find someone to help me learn it because I am going to do this. I am not going to let my song die within me. I can't let that happen. I have something of value to share. I can help women. And so I will find a way to make it happen. So I feel like, that's a part of it too, is having that confidence in yourself that whatever it takes for you to learn how to find those clients, you can do it. There's plenty of resources out there and you have the ability within you. You're like that horse. You have it. It's just a matter of taking those steps and asking yourself, what do I need to do next? What's the next smallest step I can take to find that next client? What is it that I need to learn? And who can I learn it from, basically? And that's what I've done, for the past 6 years, is just learn one thing after another and not ever give up, because this is worth it. It's worth it to do the work I was created to do. So that's what I would say is, like you said, you've put all this money and energy, time and effort into becoming a legal nurse consultant. So now you have all this stuff. You're that horse ready to run the race. You have the education and you have the knowledge, you have the expertise. You've got to open that gate and start putting it out there, because there are people that need what you have, and you can do it. You can just learn what you need to learn. As far as like finding clients, think about them and what they need more than you. That really flips the switch and helps you to feel more confident. If you realize I have something they need, I can help them. What is it that they need that I can come and help them? And that I think helps you to feel more confident to reach out and talk to people, because you're offering something they need.
And speaking of offering something people need, do you have something that you can share with our listeners or the people who are watching this podcast on our YouTube channel?
Sure. And I think what I have to offer will help in that whole area of finding clients. And it is called the Lead to Client Conversation Blueprint. So for me, like, that was a learning curve. Like, how do you have these conversations with potential clients when you first meet them, all the way through? It's like a journey. So the blueprint really walks you through 5 stages of that journey from lead to client, and how to approach them in a way that's authentic and natural and not salesy or pushy. And it comes from the place of, I'm here to help you, and being really curious about what is it they need, instead of you trying to convince them that they should hire you. You come at it more from, tell me about you. Tell me what your needs are. What is it you're looking for? And be curious. And then you have these natural conversations. And it also helps you to figure out where they're at on that journey. I know at first I was jumping all over a new client or a new lead with like, oh, do you want to hire me? And I just met this person. And my coach was like, back that up a little bit. They just met you. You should have a conversation first about them. Just find out about them. And then as you build this relationship with them and this rapport with them, they will be a lot more open. And if the need fits what you offer, they will talk themselves basically into hiring you, because they know, like, and trust you now. And they feel like you've heard them and that you really are there to serve them. Then it's a no-brainer. It really takes all the yuckiness out of those sales conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So this blueprint has some scripts you can follow. It also has a template at the end where it asks you some questions so you can make up your own or your own scripts, or, what you want to say at different points, and try it out. It gives you like things to try out with the first time you meet someone that might possibly be a client, some things that you can ask them. And it also has these guiding principles that I always use. to keep me in that frame of mind of I'm not here to convince them. I'm inviting them to work with me if we fit. I'm inviting them into this relationship. So I think it'll be very helpful for the people in your audience, that especially if they're struggling with that, sales conversation.
Yes, and I think that we all struggle with sales conversations at different points in our business.
Definitely.
I appreciate you so much, Janelle. You've
Thank you.
been able to talk about the heart of confidence issues and focus on the things that hold us back, and also the steps that open up the gates so that we can charge ahead and get the rewards that we want to claim for ourselves, for our lives, for our businesses.
Awesome. Well, I definitely enjoyed being here, and hope that I've offered something of value to your audience.
And how can people receive the blueprint that you are describing?
So there's a link. I think I did share it with you. It is my website, which is emerginglifecoaching.com/blueprint-download is how you get to it.
Okay. Would you say that again?
Sure. emerginglifecoaching.com/blueprint-download. Actually, if you just go to my website on the front page, it's there. You can grab it from there too. There's a picture it's an ebook. I actually have 2 freebies. The other one is a course on being confident. So you can actually grab both if you want. So there you go.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Janelle, as I said, and I appreciate you, the listener, who has been with us for the last bit of time, investing your time while you're taking a walk or cleaning your house or working out, or as one of my podcast listeners said, telling your children, I'm spending time with Pat right now listening to her podcast. So you need to do something else and give me a little bit of space. And I love to hear about how you've integrated Legal Nurse Podcast into your life. Be sure to go to legalnursebusiness.com, check out what we have to offer, and return next week when we have a new show, new topic, new speaker. Hey, this is Pat Iyer with Legal Nurse Podcast. I've just been talking with Joyce Weiss, who is the queen of conflict resolution. Joyce, what are some of the key points that we covered in this podcast?
Conflict resolution strategies, such as I want you, I don't want you. Phrases such as I want to hear you after I finish my thought. So interruptions, we talked about not being bullied, and how you are not bullied is that you've got to give a mindset to yourself. You got to fight yourself before you even go into that room or phone call or Zoom call with that bully. So those were some of the main things for a half-hour discussion, Pat. We covered a lot, thanks to your questions. Yes.
Be sure, if you are listening to these programs, that you click on down to Joyce Weiss. She'll be next up on your listening panel. You can also find our podcasts on the Legal Nurse Business YouTube channel, where we have the video version as well as the audio versions, which are on Spotify and Apple shows, Google Play. You can also get Alexa to tee up these podcasts by saying, "Hey, Alexa, play Legal Nurse Podcast." And we'll see you next week for a new show.